Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of the weekly Spielworks chat. My name is Uli Blennemann, and because I started this in April 2020, I should now call it, from now on, I should call this season two because season and season two, this sounds so stylish and so modern. So maybe I have to rename it into season two. And hello, Daniel. Good to see you. First of all, happy to year not only to Daniel but to everybody, because after this shit year 2020, we all hope that this new one will be at least somewhat better. At least we can hope. Hallo Nicolas, schönen Abend. Yes, right. So have a good evening as well. Of course, here we in Billabü, we had no year-end dinner party. I'm not a big year-end party guy anyway, but in this year, of course, it was not possible at all. But after dinner, here with my wife, we played Orléans, and my wife hadn't played it at all, and I hadn't played it in years. But it's a very good game, in my opinion, a really great back builder. And so the explanation is not really long. And then gameplay moves smartly. We had the impression that it plays well with two, and we had a fun evening, and so that was great. So, Orléans, if you have a chance, um, please take a look at it. It's a very nice back builder, as I said, and it's available from DLP Games. And of course, there is a ton of expansions. We played just with a base game because, as I said, we hadn't played in years or not at all. And I'm under the impression if you just want to explore the game for the first time, you don't need any expansions. Also, some people are saying they really are an improvement. Hello, Timo. Grisou is there, so I remembered your first name. Daniel is saying, I didn't care for Orleans, but I know a lot of people who love it. Yeah, so in my opinion, what is good in the game is first the back building aspect. I really liked it, but that you always do something positive. You add up so you start with basically nothing, and then everything is added. So even if you are losing in Orleans, you feel like you're doing something positive. And I think this is true for a lot of games where you build up things. And that is, in my opinion at least, why Civ games are so popular. Because you start small. Let's say we play a 5-player game. At the end, I'm fifth. But if I look at my board, if I look at my tableau, I have accomplished something. And this is also true in Orleans, I think. And Daniel is saying I'm probably just salty because my monks kept getting stuck in the back corners and never came out. And you need to know that the monks are basically the jokers. Yeah, if you never get them, that's too bad. But I think this random element actually is very good. Maybe what I would do differently, and I mentioned several months or weeks ago, that if you are professionally with a gaming company, you always look at games and you immediately want to change some aspects. This is horrible. Don't do this. But I'm looking at stuff and I want to change it. What I did not like is the aspect of the cards that tell you in which turn you are. There are 18 turns in the base game, and there is basically an event per turn, which is flipped over at the start, but then you can still do some things, and it's only evaluated at the end of the turn. But I did not like that aspect too much, but it's also a very minor affair in Orleans. So all in all, Orleans is, in my opinion, a really good game. And Timo is saying, I know you don't like co-op versions, but the expansion is amazing. Co-op expansions, yes. I've heard this from people that this is really an improvement, and I have it here in some of these. It is with the expansions, but like quite a few other things, it's unplayed in there. So maybe, but now that my wife has played it, we plan to rediscover the game again, and then probably with an expansion. So let's see. Regarding Spielworxx news, I now have less than 20 copies each of The Cost and Throne of Allegoria in stock. So if you are interested in one of these games, please hurry. So less than 20 copies each of these. And by the way, as people are already doing, if you have any questions, any comments, even to stuff that I'm not mentioning, any game that you've played, anything Spielworxx, please post it in the chat window, and I'll respond here. The first Spielworxx game of this year will be Tharos by Bernd Scholz. And as you may know, I mentioned this before, I'll Kickstarter this game, and I will Kickstarter this game in February. And it will be a very modest campaign. But here are some details. So most probably it will be a 17 days campaign, and I will likely only do 1,000 copies in total. So it will be a limited Kickstarter. And after the campaigns end, the game will be available at my website and at conventions, when there are conventions possible again, whenever that is, till supplies last. And Japan will get a few copies, Canada will get a few copies, and my US fulfillment partner will likely also get a few extra copies. And the game won't go into distribution after the Kickstarter campaign for at least 12 months. So that is a guarantee. So if you are interested in Tharos, you should Kickstarter it, or take a look at my website, or use the Japanese option or the Canadian option, but otherwise you won't get it soon. And the game, and looking at the glut of games on the market, I would not hold my breath that the game goes into distribution after 12 months. This is, in my opinion, looking at the nature of the gaming market, highly unlikely. And we will have a German and an English language gameplay video available before the start of the campaign. And I'm also looking into making available online gaming options so that you can decide yourself by playing the game before the release, before or during the Kickstarter campaign, if the game is something for you or if this is something that is not something for you. And the game will be printed in Europe, so I hope to send out the game to European backers 2 to 3 months after the end of the Kickstarter campaign. And the US backers should add to these 2 to 3 months another 8 weeks when they have it in hands. So you never know what happens, but I'm planning that the game, that I'm not sitting on the money for 12 months. So the game is fully developed when we start the Kickstarter campaign. But in 2 weeks here in this Spielworxx episode, I will cover gameplay again in detail and cover more details. And at that time, I will also know when the actual day when the campaign starts. And let me check if there are already some questions or comments. Yeah, Daniel, you are one of the lucky winners of the Spielworxx chat, so the cost is on the way to you. That is good to know. There's Chris. Hello, Chris. Good to see you. And Mo, yeah, even Daniel. Good to see you first. But even Daniel wants to play your game, that brute. So, yeah, what can we do? We can't always win. And Matthew, good to see you. So. And one of these days, I will be in your stream too. So it's a matter of timing. I see your announcements at Twitter, and it's always exciting options. So what you are doing, it's just a matter of timing. But it's a guarantee. I will look into it very soon. Um, yeah, a game that surprised me is Babylonia by Ludo Novar and designed by Rainer Knizia. And let me briefly show it to you. So that is Babylonia. So nothing special on the cover, and box is fairly standard. Components are actually quite nice. The wooden pieces are really nicely done. But I didn't even know that Babylonia exists. And again, this is the glut of games on the market. So many games, and I'm losing track here. But only Dan Thoreau, Space Biff, he put the game on my radar when he published a very, very positive review of Babylonia. And in a way, this game is typical Knizia. So you have simple rules, yet very interesting decisions. And a lot of Knizia games um, do not grab me at all. Some of them even bore me, like My City, done by Cosmos. But in this game, although the rules are very simple, they tell you a plausible story. Yes, the game is abstract strategy. It could be anywhere. It doesn't have to take place in Babylonia, but the game does not feel abstract at all. So from my side, really recommend it. So the game, by the way, at least as far as I know, there is no German edition, but the game contains English and Spanish rules. And Ludonova must be a Spanish company. And everything is language independent apart from some cards, but very few cards which mainly have icons. So it's easy to learn this game. And let me quickly post the BGG URL here. So if you are interested in this game, and I recommend it, you can check it out here. Let me just check here. Daniel, you're really a brute. First we are sending you the cost, and then now you're telling me My City was a really pleasant surprise. Although Daniel is saying he's not generally much of a Knizia fan. Yeah, My City. Um, I already tweeted about it today and in a different context. And in a way, it's typical Cosmos, so very professionally done. It's typical Knizia, simple rules. But in contrast to Babylonia, which tells me a plausible story, My City did not grab me at all because the game tells you you are building your city. So each player in the game, it's 2 to 4 players, you are building your whole city. And at the end of the game, and there are 24 games because it's a sort of legacy type game, the game tells you to completely tear down the city. So everything is removed. That's it. So in the next game you build up the same city again with some differences. So, but this is, I need a theme, I needed something in there, and this kills the whole game right from the start. I think in a 2-player game, and I played it with my wife, it has also some balance issues, which we did not care for, because she won, I think, 4 out of the first 5 games. So she had to she got some disadvantages. I get some bonuses because I lost. And later, this helped me so much that it was very difficult for her to catch up. But I have to say, I'm generally not in favor of puzzly games. So if you like puzzle games, then probably My City is something for you. Um, I was very glad that I only played with two, because if you have one slow gamer who needs forever to find the city piece and then how to position it on your city board, it will be a nightmare. So because you can only play so fast or so fast as the slowest gamer in the group. So for me, it was one of the major disappointments. But as I said so many times, nobody should put their own opinion in gaming above the others. Just look at BGG. It's 7.8, I think, at BGG, with a ton of ratings, so it's telling you something. But I also think it's a very zeitgeistig game, so really a game that is very appropriate for our current times, because simple rules, you are very easily in the game, and it really has no rough edges. So there is nothing which will hurt the players, which will start strong emotions. Nothing. It's just there for 45 minutes, and then you put it away, you throw everything in the box, and you can start soon again. So it's a game that is fitting for our times, in my opinion at least. But yeah, what do I know? Daniel is saying, my wife and I played it. It was a breezy diversion. Thematically, it was nonsense, but I didn't expect a coherent story from it. I just liked how the game evolved as we played. Yeah, if you like puzzle games, I think then it is something. We are both very mechanics first players. Yeah, and Daniel is confirming he also likes puzzle games. So then it is, in my opinion, a good choice. But still, if you have a choice between Babylonia and My City, I would definitely say Babylonia. And because I just mentioned the legacy aspect, and I think that's also a very weak thing in My City. Yes, you have some stickers and put them on, but some of them are so tiny, the gold nuggets. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, here I mentioned Sevastopol from SPI and 1978. And let me just briefly also post the BGG URL to the game. So that's that one. And that is a game, so very ancient game from 1978, but it's a siege game on the siege of Sevastopol in the Crimean War. And personally, I find siege games fascinating and interesting, but very difficult to do. And Sevastopol succeeds and has an interesting system, yet it is very long and process driven. And I only played solitaire a couple of turns between Christmas and the New Year. And with process driven, I mean that it has lots of phases. And like you probably have played a much more popular game like Civilization or Advanced Civilization from Avalon Hill, later redone as Mega Civilizations, and now I think it's Western Empires and Eastern Empires divided again. But if you've played one of these games, you know you start at the top of the page, and then you do one phase after the other. If you reach the last phase, you advance the turn marker and start again from the top. This is what I mean with process driven. And here it is the same thing. Artillery in the game is from both sides is firing. Then the British and French troops, they are building parallels, they are building saps too close to the fortress. Everything feels really appropriate, but it's so long, and so you need a lot of patience and time to play Sevastopol. And I'm glad that I tried the game again after probably 35 years when I played it first, but I doubt that I will ever play it again. This is a game from a different era when people had more time, maybe, or at least competition of modern games was a lot less. So yeah. Anyway, that is Sevastopol. And again, getting back to one of former episodes here. Um, that was the episode when there were some questions and you could win some free games. So, like Daniel and the cost. And one of the answers at that time was, "Hey, that's my fish." So, and I mentioned that I worked on the first professional edition of that game. That was done by Phalanx Netherlands, and I think that was 2005. And till I till my last episode, so 2 weeks ago, I have an anecdote from that game in my mind, and I would briefly like to tell it to you because it's in my head. So we produced this game under the German title Packeis am Pol. I think in 2005, and it was pretty popular. It was on the recommended list of for Game of the Year. And so we moved with the game to all the major conventions. And at Vienna, Austria, there was at that time a really huge convention with a lot of open gaming space and a huge gaming library. And there was also an exhibitors area, so we had a booth. And we had set up, "Hey, that's my fish." And so three elderly people, so 60s plus, even older than me, they approached the booth and they asked if they could play the game. And they were clearly non-gamers. So I said, "Yes, please sit down. This is a pretty," because I knew this is a pretty simple game. So if you haven't played it, so I can explain the full rules in definitely less than 5 minutes. It's basically abstract strategy. When it's your turn, you pick up one of your penguins and you move it in a straight line along the grid, along the board that is made up of six-sided, so hexagonal tiles. And then at the end, you pick up that tile. So you are catching some fish. That's what it is. You're moving, pick up the tile. At the end, you collect points. And of course, there are no dice included. So I explained the game to these three people, and after each sentence of my short explanation, I asked them, "Is everything okay?" And they were nodding. So, and I was under the impression that they know the rules. And I was finishing my short explanation and I asked, "Who wants to start?" And the guy opposite of me, he said, I would like to start. And I said, "Oh, wonderful, please go ahead." So his head is going down, so he's staring at the game board made up of tiles. And I'm thinking, wow, he's really into strategy here right from the start. So, but then his head is coming up. He's looking at me and asking, "So where are the dice?" And I was at first I thought for a brief second this is is a joke, but it wasn't. It wasn't. So first it tells you something how bad my game explanations are, and second, it also tells you that for non-gamers, the idea that a game does not have any dice for movement or for something else is very alien. And of course, you have to think that this was 2005 when there were a lot less modern games out there, but this is something I probably won't forget in my life. So, hey, that's my fish, and dice rolling or not dice rolling in this game. And maybe it's just the Austrians, I don't know. So, no, I have to cut this comment out probably. Um, Having or one quick other anecdote, and because also in the same episode, one of the questionnaire was and answers was when I attended my first Origins Games Convention in the US, and that was 1985. And I would just like to mention how, by giving this example, how our fascinating gaming hobby has evolved from that. Because at that time, Origins was a traveling convention, so it wasn't in Columbus, Ohio, as it is for 10, 12, 15 years now. At that time, it was in Towson State University near Baltimore, and I flew into New York and then took the train to Baltimore and then to Towson State University. And at that time, I was 20, so I had no money, of course, and most of my money had already went into the flight, which was expensive at that time. And so I stayed in a student's dormitory there at Towson State University, and I shared the room with a very nice Canadian person. And I think I lived for the whole time at the convention from hot dogs and other stuff. So that's what it was. And I had exactly money to buy one game. That was from my whole US trip. So each day I entered the very small exhibitors area and I was checking out everything. Which will be the game in the end that I'm buying? And at least I bought a good game, in my opinion. That was Empires in Arms by Australian Design Group. So that was the first edition, and then later Avalon Hill picked up the game by my good friend Harry Rowland. So he's one of the most wonderful persons on the whole planet, and he's also the designer of World in Flames, a World War II simulation. But Empires in Arms is a Napoleonic simulation, so I picked up this game. But in contrast to modern day origins from this year or from the last 5 years, there were maybe a total of 2,500 attendees, and it was very much a US convention, so hardly any foreigners there, a couple of Canadians, a couple of Germans, maybe a few Japanese, I don't know, and it was mainly a wargaming convention. So there were, if I'm now saying there were 2,500 people in total, probably 2,300 were wargamers. Hardly any Euro games, and a little bit of role playing. So that's what it was. And you have to see that is 8 years before the start of CCG. So for me it was heaven. So I was having my one hot dog a day, looking at games, playing in tournaments, in demos. So for me it was heaven. But if you now see how Gen Con is, how Essen is, how Origins is, so the world has changed gaming wise, and of course, in my opinion, to the better, because also among these 2,500 people, I think 98 were probably white male. And so diversity, no, not at all. So in a lot of ways, not only that the games have improved in gameplay, but also that our hobby is getting so much better. We still have to improve a lot, and we have a long way to go, as everybody knows, especially if you are very much interested into wargaming. You know that it's still mainly white male persons, but still it has evolved a lot. Daniel is saying it's probably just the Austrians. Yeah, it's probably just the Austrians. That's what it is. And maybe also Bavarians? Oh, no. This is even meaner. Claude is saying, hello Claude, good to see you. I had the same question about DICE 3 or 4 years ago while playing with non-gamers. It was even before I start my explanation of the game. Yeah, well, it is really DICE in it. Everybody from us is educated in a special way, and we come with our bag of stuff to everything, also to a game table. And if you are non-gamer, then you think DICE games, that's definitely has to be included. It is what it is. Probably not enough to buy Spielworxx games. No, when I attended Origins and I looked at the prices, so probably not a Spielworxx game. But I had worked so hard during school vacation, so I had everything planned for that trip then to the US. And afterwards I said, from now on I will make it to all Origins conventions, so yearly. but of course I didn't made it. It was too expensive. So next one was 1988, only 3 years later. Bavarians, Daniel is saying roll pretzels instead of dice, right? Yeah, I think we have a couple of Bavarian viewers. So, and I will tomorrow at YouTube in the show notes, I will include your address and phone number, Daniel. So you can then discuss this with these listeners. And Matt, hello Matt, good to see you. This is a pun-free zone, Daniel. It is, so no puns at all. Um, yeah. Anyway, so this was a very short episode with just a few details. Just remember Tharos. Um, and 2 weeks from now, I will go into a lot more detail about Tharos and the Kickstarter campaign for sure. And next week here, I'll have a, in my opinion, very, very interesting guest, a good friend, a good, great person, the wonderful designer Peter Rustemeyer. And we will talk about his hit game Paleo from Hans im Glück, which will be done, or maybe it is already out. Daniel, Matt, Mo, you should know this. English language edition by Z-Man Games, and in my opinion, it is a very strong candidate for Kennerspiel des Jahres of next year. And we will talk about this game in detail, so 30 minutes about Paleo next week. And thank you for your time. If you would like to ask a question in advance or have a topic that I should cover in detail here, please drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. And so till next week, bleibt gesund, good luck in Georgia, that is important, and Black Lives Matter. Bye bye.